Mr. Mackenzie, who pretends as a pastor when in fact he is a terrible criminal. Terrorists use religion to advance their heinous acts. Any religious institution that teaches against seeking medical attention or going to school, those responsible should be prosecuted. People like Mackenzie and all other terrorists and criminals do not belong to any religion. They belong to jail, and that is where they should be.
Kenyan cult leader Paul Mackenzie Nthenge first started his career as a taxi driver on the streets of Nairobi in 1997. In his demonic teachings, he ordered his followers to stop their children from going to school or receiving any form of formal education, to burn their certificates or school credentials, to quit their jobs or careers, never to take medications or receive medical treatments from hospitals, to live within his 800 acres of land, now known as the Shakahola forest, and most importantly, to fast themselves to death, as that is the only way to see God. In our first Kenyan case so far, we will look at the case of notorious Kenyan cult leader Paul Mackenzie Nthenge and his recent Shakahola massacre. Before we start today's case, I would like to put out this little disclaimer. We do not mean any disrespect to any of the victims talked about in this case. This story is simply for educational purposes and to create awareness. And that being said, let's get right into today's case. Hello and welcome to this awesome community if this is your first time. Welcome back if this is not your first time. My name is Joy Phillips and this is Lawyers Case Files. Notorious Kenyan cult leader Paul Mackenzie Nthenge first started his career as a taxi driver on the streets of Nairobi in 1997. While running his taxi business between 1997 and 2003, official records show he was arrested over 4 times for his extreme teachings against formal education, healthcare and Western medicine, careers and jobs, and participation in sporting activities, among other things. In 2003, Paul Mackenzie and his wife Joyce Wikamba officially set up their ministry in the form of Goodnews International Church, when he claimed he has been called and could communicate directly with God. Over the years, the former taxi driver and his wife gradually grew their followers and continued spreading their extreme teachings against any member or follower receiving formal education, Western medicine or healthcare, taking up careers and jobs, and against the Catholic Church and some government policies, and persistently preached that the end times are almost here. Before you know it, Paul Mackenzie was able to amass a large cult following, mostly by convincing his congregation that he could communicate directly with God. Following this prosperity, in 2015, Mackenzie moved his ministry, the Goodnews International Church, to Migingo village in Malindi County, alongside his wife and family. And it is reported that that is where his family lives, even right now as we speak. According to unconfirmed reports, in 2016, Mackenzie convinced a member of his cult to sell his property and hand him the entire sum of 20 million Kenyan shillings generated from the sale of the property. The source claimed that the cult leader received this money in 2016, and by 2017, he was able to use part of it to fund his television station to further broadcast his message, and also acquire his first 10 acres of land at Shakahola Forest. Other members of the court followed suit and sold all their properties and handed all the money to Mackenzie's court. After acquiring the television station in 2017, Mackenzie continued and even intensified his anti-social and anti-educational teachings, both to his congregation and the public, and demanded his followers to stop their children from going to school or stop enrolling them at schools, to quit all their jobs and burn all their certificates, to stop drinking medications when they are sick or even visiting the hospital for treatment, because according to him, education and all these are all tools of the devil and are not of God. Following their teachings in 2017, Mackenzie and his wife were arrested and charged with religious radicalization, denying children access to education and health care, as well as running an unauthorized school and television station. This incident also led to the closure of his television station by the Kenyan Film Classification Board. Over 93 young people, including university, secondary and primary school students, were also rescued from him. It is also reported that some of the kids died at that time because Mackenzie denied them receiving medical treatment. Unfortunately, Mackenzie and his wife were arrested and charged to court, but later released by the court due to insufficient evidence to convict. In 2018, he was heavily criticized by Migingo community leaders, especially one Aisha Junwa, who was the MP for Malindi County at the time, for inciting young children to drop out of school without parental consent. Aisha ensured that they were arrested and charged to court for the content of their teachings and doctrines, but then again, they were later released by the court for lack of sufficient evidence. His television station was also later reopened. In 2019, Mackenzie was arrested once again and charged with disobedience of the law, religious incitement, and indoctrination. This time he was arrested and charged for inciting the public against registration for Huduma number, which is a kind of personal identification number usually assigned to Kenyan citizens or residents and normally expires on the death of that resident or citizen. He likened the Huduma number or personal identification number to the mark of the beast and discouraged his followers or court members from getting it or registering for it. He was also accused of abducting children and brainwashing them to join his cult. Mackenzie was also acquitted and set free by the court in this matter. It was after this case in 2019 that Mackenzie closed his church and television station in Migingo community and moved to Shakahola Forest. In an interview in 2019, he told reporters that God told him in a revelation that the time to quit has come. He said that Jesus told him that the work he gave him has come to an end, and that was why he was closing Goodnews International Church to move to Shakahola Forest for farming. Unfortunately, he secretly led his followers deep into Shakahola Forest and acquired an 800-acre of land and started brainwashing them to starve to death in order to meet Jesus. On March 17, 2023, a murder complaint was filed against Paul Mackenzie that some parents, acting on his advice, had starved and suffocated their 2 children to death. The 2 children were alleged to have been buried in a shallow grave at Shakahola Forest. Following this murder accusation in March, Paul Mackenzie was also arrested and charged, but again released on bond of 10,000 shillings by the court. After his release on the 10,000 bond, Pastor Mackenzie, the cult leader, gave an interview to the press, stating that he was very surprised by the accusation and noting that he has stopped preaching since 2019 and that he's currently farming in Shakahola village where he has bought land. Less than 3 weeks later, on April 14th, 2023, Kenyan police, acting on a tip-off from a cult member who had escaped, invaded Mackenzie's 800 acres of land at Shakahola Forest in search of cult members who are starving themselves to death on the order of the cult leader in order to die and go and meet Jesus. As at the time of this report, over 110 bodies have been recovered by the Kenyan police, buried in mass and shallow graves all over Mackenzie's property in Shakahola Forest. Almost half of the bodies recovered are those of young children who have been starved to death by their parents, allegedly following Mackenzie's advice that starvation to death means going to meet God or means going to see Jesus. Similarly, the police have also rescued and sent to the hospital over 40 persons who were in the process of starving themselves to death on the advice and supervision of the cult leader. The cult leader turned himself in to the authorities a few days after police invaded his property, and he is currently in police detention, where it's reported that he is allegedly rejecting food and drinks. Perhaps he's finally ready to go and meet Jesus. Who knows? So this brings us to the end of today's episode on the horrors of Kenya's Shakahola Forest and cult leader Paul Mackenzie Nthenge. Thank you very much for watching this episode, especially for watching till the end. Like this video if you like it and give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notification button so you will be notified anytime we upload a new video. Until I see you next time, take care of your community, look out for one another, and stay safe out there. Bye.